Okay, now let us just see this upload process. I was talking about by 10th, I have to upload my outward supply, and on 15th, I have to upload my inward supply, and how the monthly return gets generated automatically and how the tax liability is paid. So we will just see what is this process of upload, right? So let's say these are the various dealers. So by 10th of every month, these people have to now upload all their outward supply, which is the sales invoices, okay, to the GSTN. Okay, that's what we are calling it as GST portal to GSTN. Right. So now each of them, they will upload their sales invoices by 10th of every month. Now from 11th onwards, right? So the sales returns, I mean the sales details that has been furnished in GSTR1 will automatically get auto-populated in GSTR2. What is GSTR2? It is the purchase detail or the inward supply detail. It will get automatically auto-populated. So whatever the selling dealer is furnished, it will get auto-populated. Now you will see this 2 red line which is going up. So this is what I was mentioning earlier, that in case if you have any purchase invoice which has not been declared by the selling dealer, okay, there is a provision in the form where you can now say, okay, these are additional purchase invoice from these people that I have purchased, and you have to now upload this by 15th of every month. So once this outward supply and inward supply GSTR1, GSTR2 is completed, right? So there is 5 days of window period for in case of any discrepancy. Here we have seen there are 2 invoices that I have uploaded as purchase, but my selling dealer has not uploaded as his sale. So that needs to be sorted out, and if it is gets sorted out, good. So by 20th of every month, okay, so based on these information, the GSTR3, which is the monthly return, will automatically auto tax return will get generated automatically, which will say, okay, this is the total turnover and this is the total tax liability, and the challan also will be made available by the portal. All we need to do is just download the challan and go and make the payment. So this needs to happen by 20th of every month. So which means 20th of the month, I have to accept this return, and also the dealer needs to make the payment, which means whatever is the liability that is there for that particular period or month, he has to now make this payment. Okay. So how does this return works is basically, one is that this is what we are talking about, the extreme right is what is the GST net or GSTN, right? So this is the main server, right? So then we also have GSPs as an intermediator or as a gateway. Now how can we relate this GSP to understand better is, like if you see today, the TDS return that is filing, this NIC acts as a gateway, right? So we upload it on the NIC, and then from the back end it goes into the GSTN. So similar kind of, and why this is done is basically since it's going to carry huge amount of data for all the dealers. The expectation is that there's going to be 6 to 8 million people who will be filing their first GST return on 10th of May once it is implemented on 1st of April 2017. So there's going to be a huge data. So it has to be more secured, robust, and all those things. So the gateway acts basically as an additional layer of security kind of a thing. So we will understand this. We will have some separate a session on what is the GSP, what are their role, and what value add, and all those things we will discuss about. Just to overall understand, saying that my GSTR 1, 2, 3 can either pass directly to GSTN for small businesses, or it passes through my GSPs. Okay, the next question comes is the input tax credit. So we were talking about CGST, SGST, and IGST, right? So supposing if I have CGST, SGST, IGST, in what order I can now set off my input tax credit to my tax liability? All right. So how does this work, right? So it's very important for us to understand, because we cannot miss this order, and this is what is specified. We can only adjust in this order that has been specified. So let's take this example. Let us say that first I have CGST ITC, which is my input tax credit of CGST I have. So what is going to be the order of set off? Obviously I have to set off against my CGST liability, right? So I will set off against my CGST liability, and if there are additional ITC after setting off my liability, I can now set off the CGST liability to IGST, right? This is the order that you need to set off your input tax credit. Now SGST, yes, first set off against the SGST. Any excess SGST that is available, you can set it off against IGST, right? So next, what is the third thing is the IGST, right? So that's my IGST, which is, this is the three major components under GST, right? So under IGST, if you see, again, it's very simple and logical that all my IGST, ITC, first I need to set it off against my IGST liability, right? Now, the remaining ITC of IGST liability, first I will set it off against the CGST liability, right? So I will set it off against CGST liability, and further if there is any IGST ITC that is available for that particular month, now I can go and set it off against the SGST, right? So this is the order, and if you notice, right, the IGST is talking about, first is primarily setting off against the IGST, then it says next do your CGST set off and SGST set off. If you notice the above two things, so CGST, okay, and SGST are two separate stream, which means what should we understand, that you cannot cross set off your excess ITC of CGST to SGST. Very important for us to remember, right? Similarly, you cannot set off any excess SGST ITC to CGST. So these two are separate things. So in case, so the question now is, okay, I have set it off my CGST, I have set it off my IGST, still I have excess CGST. What should I do? Very simple, carry over to the next month. And same is applicable for SGST. Under IGST, you do this thing, and even after adjusting all this thing, if there is excess IGST, carry over to the next month. Okay. Now coming to the payment part. Right, so 20th of the subsequent month, the payments have to be made, and for all the tax amount which is exceeding 10,000 rupees needs to be mandatorily made through e-payment, right, which is basically the online where you can do NEFT, GST, IMPS and those kind of things, and less than that, offline you can pay by cash, check or DD, where the challan is made available. You need to just download the channel, print the channel, and then go and pay it at the bank. Okay, what are the inferences of the existing law? One, we have seen this. I hope that, basically, this last one hour, 15 minutes that we have covered under GST gives us an overall basic understanding of how the system of GST is going to work, right? And we also have, to an extent, knowledge of the existing laws, right? So now we are only just trying to see that, okay, what are the existing law which is forming more or less part of my GST. Okay, this gives us this comfort saying that, okay, like GST is not a new devil. It is a better devil compared to my existing laws. Okay? So the composition scheme was there in the existing regime and will get continued when its composition scheme is made available under the GST law also, which we have seen and discussed about it. The next is the composition levy. Right? So currently the composition levy is somewhere between 1 to 2% under various this thing, and also the current draft law does not specify the rate of composition levy, but it says that it cannot be less than 1% of the total turnover of the composition dealer for the given month or the period, right? So it is generally, since it's a quarterly return, it is going to be the for every quarter, right? So that's the thing, but there is no specific rate that has been specified yet. Okay, so we have this reverse credit mechanism, Now this, if you see, this reverse credit mechanism is basically it is applicable in the provision of services, right? Well, there are certain services where the recipient of service, the tax liability lies on the recipient of service. For example, the goods carrier and various other services in the existing regime. Now, this reverse credit mechanism or reverse charge mechanism will be applicable, is also will be there under GST, and now it will now get extended to goods also, which the law currently doesn't specify what are the kind of goods or what are the kind of services for which reverse charge mechanism is going to be applicable. They will be notifying it, and then based on that, then the reverse charge mechanism is going to be implemented, will be applicable under GST. Exemptions, yes, currently one is that yes, GST says that there is no exemptions, okay, and there are no declaration forms and all those things. But yes, there is a section under the current law which gives the provision for the government or the GST council to decide whether going forward, okay, should exemption be provided, or is it required to be allowed partially or fully, conditionally, unconditionally. All those things the GST can do, but then there is a section which allows the GST, the government, to implement or introduce exception if it is required in the interest of the nation and various other things. Remission of tax, we will not discuss about it. This is basically applicable for goods which, basically, especially in case of petrol and other thing, where it gets evaporated, So this mainly applicable under excise, remission of tax. It is still getting continued under GST also. The valuation and various other things will change. So let's not get into too much of the nitty-gritty of this. Captive consumption, yes, under excise we have the captive consumption. The same thing will be applicable under GST. Reversal of ITC, broadly we have seen this reversal of ITC in case of VAT. Reversal of ITC is also applicable under GST. Input service distributor concept, which is currently existing under service tax, will be also available under GST, and we have seen under the return there is one return which talks about the return to be filed by the input service distributor. Job work, more or less with slight modifications and enhancements, all the existing, whatever is the existing law, job work, more or less the similar thing is made available under the GST. Tax credit on input stock held, yes. In 2005, when in 2005, 5 states introduced VAT in 2005, right? And subsequently various other states followed suit, and then by 2007, 2008, almost all states were, under the VAT regime, right? So at whichever point of time, right? So when VAT was introduced in that particular state, right? So the government gave them the benefit of input tax credit on the input that they are holding as closing stock on the last day prior to the date of implementation of the new law. So this was already available in the current law, especially under the VAT scheme you have this, right? And also it is available under your excise and service tax, where a new person who is not falling under the threshold limit and is not registered, and then he is crossing the threshold limit and he is registering, the input tax credit facility is made available under the current law. The same thing is extended, will be made available under the GST also. So with GST, what will change? Okay. Very important is the technology. So what is the great thing about technology? It is basically, if you see, now we will see the real digital B2G connect. So what is B? B stands for business and G stands for government, right? So by this time we would have had a clear, at least an idea of how this technology is going to play a major role, and we saw this uploading process, the return filing process and all those things, right? So there's going to be this, the real B2 business to government connect is going to happen, because the businesses are going to upload their sales invoice to the government portal, and the government is now going to tell me what is my purchase, right? That is going to auto-populated in my GSTR2, which I have to accept it. If there is any, if there are any discrepancies, then I need to just update that information what I'm holding and then I give. So which means basically now there is a two-way communication between business to government. The business goes to the government, government gives the information to the business, business uploads to the government, and this is a major change that is going to happen in the digital, the technology part of it. Right? And again, we would have got an idea of the end-to-end technology which is going to drive this system, right? So right from my purchases to the thing, and every aspect of wherever there is a discrepancy between the buyer and the seller, right? So the the law says that immediately both the parties will be notified. So which means now you can the dealers can expect more notifications from the government in their inbox rather than their business information in their inbox, right? If there are any problem. And very important thing, if you see the GST compliance rating, right? So what is this GST compliance rating, and how this GST compliance rating will be successful is that the technology is going to be the key, right? So what is the GST compliance rating? If you see, if we apply for a loan, the bankers first thing today what they check is the CIBIL rating. The CIBIL rating basically tells us whether I am an eligible guy to take a loan or I'm a useless guy where nobody is going to touch me, right? So we are aware of this, right? So similar kind of a thing. So what is the problem that we saw in the input tax credit, which is where I said majority of the recommendations have gone and they said this is going to be a bit severe in the under the GST regime, right? Assuming that no changes is going to happen, right? The government is going to implement the way they have prescribed currently. It becomes very difficult because now I don't even know if I go to if I have an existing relationship with my supplier, then I can continue. I mean, the trust element is going to now play a very important role, right? Because now if I go to a new person, now okay, one is that there is two-way cash flow impact, negative impact to my business. One is that I am buying the material, he is going to charge GST and I am going to pay him the money including the GST that is charged, with good faith that he is going to now comply to the GST, right? Now, assuming that this person is not filing the return and then he is suddenly vanishing, right? So one is that my money towards the GST on my inward supply I have paid. Now I am not eligible for this input tax credit. Now I have to pay additionally to the government, right? So now this becomes a very challenging thing. So now what the government, the law prescribes, now how this is going to happen, we will have to wait and see. But then this is a very good thing that is happening. So which means today, as a businessman, if I want to procure something where there is a supplier who is a stranger who supplies that material maybe at a competitive rate, now I can go to the GST and this compliance rating is going to be made publicly available on the GST and for the various dealers. So now I can go to the portal and see, maybe I can just type and see whether this guy is GST compliant, right? So whether he's filing his return on time. Probably, we don't know how they are going to give this complaint rating now, whether it is going to be star or all those things, we don't know. But this is a very good thing that is going to happen. And the success of this is what the technology is going to drive the success of implementation of GST. What are the processes that needs to be changed, right? So one is that now it is more of transaction focused, right? So which means now one is that first, yes, I have to now record. Now even genuinely by mistake, if I don't record a purchase or a sale, it is going to be difficult because the other party is going to do and then that reconciliation, and it is going to definitely come out on the portal, right? So one is that yes, it is going to be transaction focused. One is that all my books of account, all my purchases and sales, I have to record it, right? And there's going to be a transparency from the grassroots level of all business record. So in a business, you see majority of the transaction or majority of the information for a business is going to be the purchase and sale. So this whole information is now transparently available at any point of time. In GSTN, you will get all your purchase detail and your sales detail, right? So in case your system, there is a problem or something, you can always go to GSTN and then download. Just giving you just a visualization. Okay, the other important thing is triangulation of supplier and recipient record. So now basically we have to now make sure that whatever information that is my purchase and sale should match with my other party. See, this requires my additional care that needs to be taken under my GST regime. The process, if you see, one is the transaction focused, right? So, which is basically, if you see now, all my purchases and all my sales, what I'm recording and what I'm uploading needs to be recorded and uploaded properly, because the other party is also going to upload that information, and that will get triangulated or that will get cross-verified, right? So that is number one. Number two is the transparency from the grassroots level of the business record. So which means I was mentioning earlier that, see, for every business, if you see, the purchase and sale plays the most vital and important or major transactional records that is there. No, all majority of them are made available on the GSTN portal, right? So we upload that information, government has that information. So we need to have this transparency and then make sure that, these informations are, recorded appropriately as per the requirement. The next aspect of it, if you see, is now I need to now triangulate. So which means basically all my sales, I have to now upload, and my purchase, my dealer who was purchasing, now he is going to triangle. So which means now I have to make sure that, okay, is there any sale invoice that is missed out, which my people who have purchased from me have uploaded as my sales invoice, right? So this is what basically my sales and purchase within my business and across my parties, I need to now triangulate my supplies and receipt of goods. Then the rectification of errors and the omissions have to be taken care within the prescribed time. Otherwise, within the prescribed time, if the discrepancies are not getting sorted out, then, if you have claimed input tax credit, you will have to repay that input tax credit along with interest. So that's what the law specifies. Then the other aspect is the reconciling of returns with your books of account, which is very important. So either way, your books of account should be accurate such that your return is going to be accurate. Or now the government, say the GSTR, with GSTR 1, GSTR 2, it is going to give the missing information. I have to now take those missing information and ensure that those informations is not being taken care for compliance, but also the same information needs to be updated in my books of account for future references. One very important thing that is going to happen here under GST is there is no revised return concept under GST. Earlier, yes, we could have made a mistake, some bills have been missed out, I can go and file a revised return. Now here there is no revised return. Once we get into the understanding the returns, which will cover as a separate subject, when we understand the components of the GSTR 1, GSTR 2, we will understand why we are saying that there is no provision for a revised return, because there is a dispute which has not been resolved in the previous period by 20th of the subsequent month. Then the department says that, okay, you resolve it within the next 60 days. So now if you see in the next month return, there are areas where it says that, okay, what are your disputes which was not resolved, and now you tell me what are those things. So now what is happening? In fact, if you see, actually it is a revised return only I am filing, but then I am revising that information in my subsequent month's return, I'm not revising my entire return from a previous period. So that's very, very important thing. That's why it requires a lot of discipline. Your process needs to be changed, and this is what we were talking about. It is not just the tax reform, it is going to be a major business reform that is going to happen. Okay, discipline is, yes, I have to now submit my return on time. So which means my GSTR 1 by 10th I have to submit, my GSTR 2 by 15th I have to submit, my GSTR 3 I have to submit by 20th, and various other, my annual return and other thing, right? So why it is very important? So one, we saw the input credit mechanism, that if the selling dealer, if you see under GST, this is my analysis, right? So if you see under GST, the seller is the king. If the seller is not uploading his sales invoice, even though I have his purchase invoice, I can upload it, but then if my seller is not accepting that, if there is a dispute, in any case within the prescribed time period, if this is not getting resolved, I am going to lose that input tax credit. right? Similarly, it talks about if you are going to raise a debit note or credit note, depending on those things, you cannot as a buyer raise a debit note or a credit note. Okay, the seller has to raise a debit note or a credit note accordingly based on whatever is the business negotiation or the finalization or the resolution that you have done, and you will only accept the debit note or the credit note of the seller. So the buyer doesn't have anything that he can initiate to close this a particular disputed transaction, right? So these are some of the things which basically it requires, and that is the reason why online submission becomes very important, because if I don't file the return on time and if I don't discharge my liability for that particular month within the prescribed time, one is my purchaser is going to suffer the input tax credit. Okay. Apart from that, since I'm not filing the return on time and I'm not paying the liability, I will not be eligible for my input tax credit that I have claimed. Right. So it is very important that my on-time submission of return is going to be very critical. On-time payment also is going to play a very, very critical role. In case if there is any dispute, it is not resolved within the prescribed time period, one that yes, you have to reverse it or you will have to repay the credit that you have taken, and number two is that interest is going to be applicable on those time barred, disputed amounts. Generally, there is going to be a less scope for kacha bill, right? So since we would have understood this by now that what is the, what is the mechanism, how the mechanism is being built such that, it becomes very difficult for us to, play a fool around with. And what is one major change that is going to happen VAT only dealer? Like if you see, since the VAT exemption limit is ranging between 5 to 25 lakhs across the country, right? And excise being the threshold limit being 1.5 crore. Even if I'm a manufacturer, if my annual turnover is less than 1.5 crore, so I will not be registered under excise. But then my turnover will exceed the threshold limit of any given state, then I will be a VAT dealer. Right. So today under GST, if you see, majority of the VAT dealers, right, so will now get exposed to the compliance of inherited provisions of excise and service tax, right? So now supply of goods, right, I have to now manufacture, right? So I mean, manufacturing is not going to stop until GST. Now there will be various registers and other things probably which could be prescribed, so which we don't have the detail, right? So now a person who's under VAT will also, and not covered under excise, will have a major compliance challenges where the competency needs to be there, understanding of the law is very important, guidance from the professionals probably he could seek and all those things. So this is one major exposure for the VAT dealer under the GST regime, especially who are manufacturing not covered under excise. Consequences of non-compliance. There's a late fee. I mean, it is 100 rupees per day for every day during which such failure continues, subject to a maximum of 5,000 rupees. Right? Interest, delayed tax payment, there is an interest and the rate of interest is not yet notified. So, but then, the interest is going to be there for delayed tax payment. Fines, 10,000 rupees or equivalent amount to the extent of tax amount evaded. And also, there are prosecution also where, basically if the tax evasion is ranging from somewhere ranging from 25 lakhs to 500 lakhs, then there is going to be there's going to be penalty, and also imprisonment ranging from 1 year, 3 year to 5 years for the non-compliance part of it. Okay. Now this is just to give you an idea that if you take this GST system, now you will understand this. These are the various stakeholders who will be connected and who will be in constant communication with the data exchange could happen with these various stakeholders. What is the preparedness for GST? Books of account records should match 100% with the return, right? Then discipline in maintaining and recording and reconciling, especially the electronic credit and cash ledger, which is available on the GSTN, right? So recording of, see, we were talking about the input tax credit, right? So records, whatever is the record that has been maintained, it should be substantiated if required by the department for clarity of the input tax credit eligibility that you are claiming. It is very much required. Then the capital goods held on the last day of the appointment date of GST transition. These are the information that needs to be recorded properly, revised or revisited, and ensure that the records are proper, such that there is not, there will not be any much delay in getting those credits. And the big transitioning to the GST itself. If you see here, technology plays. We were talking about the technology is the key. So if you just see what should be the technology system or a software which would help. I'm talking from an overall technology perspective, right? So any technology should help the GST dealers in seamlessly detecting, correcting, and compliance at various stages. One is that, yes, when I'm configuring in my system, can I have this kind of benefit or facility which seamlessly detects, corrects, and ensures that I am compliant as per the GST law, right? While recording my transaction, can the system assist me in detecting, correcting, and compliance aspect of it, right? So one is that, yes, reconciling at sources, yes, I have recorded my purchases and sales. So how quickly I can reconcile and make sure that whatever is GSTR wants, in whatever column they want, whatever information they want, are those information being captured properly in my books of account today, such that I'm able to quickly port it to my GSTR1. Then reconciling post reporting. So I have reported, okay, so genuinely I must have missed out one sales invoice, but my purchaser is now uploaded the sale purchase invoice, so which I should now account this as my sale invoice, which I have missed it out. So this is something which, after I have reported to GSTN, the reconciliation process that is required, how a technology can seamlessly help me to quickly detect, correct, and ensure me that I am compliant as per the law. Then the triangulation with the GSTN is basically the electronic cash ledger, the electronic credit ledger. We'll have to make sure that, yes, my values. This is like, the bank reconciliation that I'm doing, right? So currently I have my bank account in my books of account, and my banker has my account in his books of account, right? So we have this bank reconciliation in Tally. If you see, we have this auto bank reconciliation. What does this auto bank reconciliation says? That I just download the transaction, push it into Tally, and now or Tally automatically now verifies the transaction and says, okay, these are the missing transactions in your book which the bank has passed, and these are the missing transactions in the bank book which you have passed, right? So something like this is something the technology should help us, such that it becomes easy. It should not be cumbersome. So it should not happen that the way things are going, it should not happen that whatever business I am doing, that becomes my side business and compliance becomes my main business. Right. So how can a technology system can help me and transition me from my existing regime to the new regime, such that I am not worried and I am able to conduct my business as usual? Yes, there is going to be a little bit of, not little bit, definitely a little bit of more effort that is required for every businessman to understand and then prepare the businesses to build the competencies. One, as an owner, or the organization competencies have to be there. At least at the basic level, I need to understand what is the GST system, what is the requirement, and how I need to be compliant in this requirement. So one very good thing, which again we said, is the technology plays a very important role in successful implementation of GST across the country, right? So the hero of GST, if you see, is the API. So what is this API? It's basically application program interface. And like this is what I mentioned in the previous two slides before this, where I said the technology part, we said this is the real digital B2G that is going to happen. So this API, for the first time, the government is coming out in providing the application program interface to the ASPs, which means application service providers, where I mean, like these links or this interface can help the software developers to develop the product in such a way that it can seamlessly now communicate with the GST and ensure that the compliances are met as per the requirement of the law. This is a very, very important thing. This is going to be a major game changer that is going to happen in the technology world as far as Indian compliance is concerned going forward. Tally's role, again, these are at a very, very nascent stage, right? So nothing has been firm progress or anything. So I'm just giving you an idea, like like one we said is the GSTN, which is the government server, right? So now previous slides we saw about this GSP, like how the GSP plays as a gateway kind of a thing. Now if you see this GSP is interface with GSTN, right? And ASP is application service provider, which is, if you can relate ASP, then Tally is an ASP. We are also wanting to be GSP, right? Now, supposing, let us assume that everything goes fine and all those things happen, and then assume that we become GSP. Once we become GSP, now since Tally is a GSP and Tally is also an ASP, this GSP-ASP combination is like the best couple in the world. Very, very understanding couple. You can do wonders by being a GSP and ASP, and the kind of experience that we can give in the business solution as a Tally product is going to be phenomenal, and we couldn't have even dreamt the kind of experience that we can give in our product, which we have not even even dreamt of in our wildest dream. That's basically, we are talking about the change in the technology and the advancement that the interface and the communication and the connectivity that is going to happen between the GSTN and the GSP and the ASP. So that's all I have. I hope the session was informative. You were able to get a broader understanding of the subject as GST, and like Mr. Manish had mentioned earlier, right? So we have our blog, blogs.tallysolutions.com, or on our TEPL website and our Tally Solutions website. We have this link to the blog. We have a long GST blog page, right? So we are on a weekly basis, we are uploading 3 to 4 blogs. Basically, if you see whatever we have spoken now, we have explained it with examples and all those things. Please go through it. It is in a very, it is living by the spirit of Tally's power of simplicity, right? So we have taken a lot of effort and to ensure, we bring that same simplicity in making people understand the complexity of GST compliance, right? So today also there is one new blog that has been uploaded, which talks about the input tax credit. Claiming of input tax credit mechanism is one thing where we have this thing. Please go through it, and if you have any queries, any feedback, please write to gst@tallysolutions.com. Thank you very much.